We spent the rest of the cab ride home trying to figure out what Emily's abilities were, and got basically nowhere with it, especially since we couldn't exactly do any tests while we were inside of the taxi. But eventually we made our way back to the mansion, exiting the taxi cab and walking towards the front gates of the mansion, which had a scanning device that would register us. Just like the one in the taxi cab, it recognized us easily. I was actually a bit concerned about it when I first ordered the taxi. I mean, I had just gotten super enhanced by some sort of mega experimental procedure. I was worried that it might change my DNA or how computers interpret me, but apparently my genetic information stayed the same. At least enough so that the computer didn't know the difference, and easily recognized me. So after scanning our way through, the gates opened up and we headed towards the mansion. And as we did, we were immediately greeted by my entire family as well as the rest of my little pit crew, rushing out of the mansion and heading towards us. Most likely they had gotten an alert that I had scanned my way through the front gate, and were coming to check. There were actually a large number of XPCs in the yard of the estate. 9 of them to be specific. They definitely boosted security. "Oh my God!" my mother shouted as she approached rapidly, running across the yard and jumping into my arms. "Oh, I thought I had lost you again," she said, almost crying as she did, as the rest of my family and Al, Danny, and the doctor approached. "Whoa, bro, you freaked me out. I thought you had disappeared on me again," Michael said, stepping up towards me and my mother still clinging quite tightly to me. "Well, I almost did. But luckily we were able to get our way out of the situation. However, things have become a bit more complex. We've got some new problems, but we also might have some new advantages working for us. It's a little bit of both, I suppose, good and bad." "Well, I would hope so," the doctor replied. "After wasting 3 days, to come back with nothing would be, well, an utter failure. And who exactly is your new guest?" he said, looking over to Titan. "What happened to your motorcycle? Blow it up. You do know that those artificial intelligence systems aren't exactly easy to produce, and there's no telling what was all included within it. To have lost such a thing would be a powerful loss. And yet it appears you accomplished the task," the doctor said, crossing his arms as he looked at me. "I'll have you watch your tone, sir," my mother said, turning around and looking at him angrily. "How dare you insult my son after he's obviously been through some sort of trauma? What kind of friend are you?" she said abruptly. "Oh, don't misunderstand. We're not friends. We're casual business associates. We currently have called to work together, but that's currently the end of the situation. Even if he dies, I don't really care. So long as I get what I want before it happens." "These are the people you associate with," my mother said, looking back towards me. "Couldn't you have picked better associates?" I breathed a deep sigh. "Trust me, Mom, the doc is his own thing. The rest of the people in my group don't fall into the same categories. And for your information, I did not lose my motorcycle. Well, I suppose you could say that I did and I didn't." "Well, what exactly is that supposed to mean? How can you lose something but not lose something?" Well, that's part of the complicated part. I said as I raised my hand and gestured towards Titan. I would like to reintroduce all of you to my former motorcycle, Titan. Hello, Doctor. How have you been? Titan said, raising her hand and waving with a bit of a smile. What in the world? How did your motorcycle... You know what? I'm not going to bother asking. You'll explain. Weirdness is actually a little bit comforting. It's been a while since I've seen such a drastic change. It makes me miss magic. Yeah, well, for right now, I think we should take this conversation inside, I replied. There's no telling who could be listening or watching while we're out here. I'd like this conversation to remain private. Yes, I suppose that would be optimal, my father said, walking up. It's good to see that you're well, son, he said, extending his hand for a shake. I reached out, clasping hold of his hand, and before he could do anything about it, pulled him in for a hug. It, of course, startled him a bit. As I said, shows of affection weren't really his specialty. But he lamented, after a few minutes, giving in and hugging me back after those moments passed, before we released and separated, and he went back to straightening himself up and trying not to be any sort of emotional. Well, back inside. There are a great number of things to discuss, my father said, turning around and heading back towards the estate, opening the doors as we all followed him in, making our way to the front living area, spreading out and taking seats around the room, as myself, Emily, and Titan stood in front of the television set as to be the central focus of attention, so that we could explain the situation. Okay, kid, so break this down for me and try to make it, sound not nuts. How in the hell do you disappear for 3 days, come back, and your motorcycle is now a pretty young girl? Did you wish on a star, like really hard? No, Al, I replied. It wasn't like this was my choice, okay? In fact, it wasn't even Titan's choice. She kind of freaked out when she woke up and she was, a person. Like a flesh and blood one. But I suppose I'm getting ahead of myself. At that point, I took a deep breath and began to regale everyone with what had happened to me, starting with the attack on biotech by that tech freak, the individual who came trying to warn me about Mother's plans, or Victoria, however you want to call her, about the message handed down from the believer, the fact that Victoria was over 100 years old, and the inventor of biotechnology, that she too had been chosen by the believer to take part in this game, and about the nanite process by which myself, Titan, and Emily had been changed somehow, yet didn't really have any information about it. So let me get this straight. You decided to haul off and turn my goddamn sister into a tech freak. Is that what you're telling me? Danny said, stepping forward, looking, outright pissed off, grabbing me by the shirt and pulling me in for a moment. You're supposed to look out for her, not experiment on her, you bastard. What the hell is wrong with you? I'm half tempted to kick your ass right here and now. Relax, Danny. This isn't exactly something I had a big amount of choice in. It was either take the nanite serum or be forced to take it anyways. There weren't any options to work with. Our highest chance for survival was to just go with it. Those were literally the only options we were given. I got locked into a situation, The same is said about Emily. We didn't have a choice. I didn't experiment on your sister. In fact, as far as I can tell, she hasn't really changed. Out of the three of us, she's the only one who hasn't seemed to have manifested any abilities. Which is actually more concerning, if not anything else. Why in the hell is she the only one who hasn't gotten some sort of weird-ass power yet?